Hello everybody and welcome to the final part of the rigging the character. Right, so far, bit of a recap. We've gone through putting the bones in the legs, the spine, the arms, the clavicles and the head. We've gone through loose bones and blends. I find they work okay together but not brilliantly together. We've gone through simple GUIs and now we're going to go through skinning. Now skinning essentially is linking each of these bones to the mesh. And when I say the mesh, each vertex must have complete influence through one of these bones. If it doesn't, Maya will make it up for you. So a lot of you guys were, when you've just done the arm, and when it first gave you the model, saying everything else is moving, is going funnily, is moving when the arm moves, even the legs. Well, that's because those vertices in the legs have to be influenced somewhere. So each of these vertices must have some reference to a bone, and it has to be 100%. What I'll do is I'll go through and generally show you a couple of quick ways to actually get most of the weighting right. Weighting's one of those jobs where I don't think you ever really quite complete. It's a subjective thing, whether it works or you need to tweak it. Most of the time you will need to tweak it in some way whatsoever. We're going to be using the skin bind command. It's a deformer in the same way as blend shapes are deformers, and clusters are deformers. It's a deformer, so watch after you've done this how you delete the history. I'm going to also be going through saving and loading what you've done here, or the skinning. So even though we haven't got a quite complete skeleton yet, I'm going to go through and put some of the influence into these. So really what you want to do is select the whole skeleton, and then you select the body, and that's all you need to do. It doesn't really matter what order you do it in, so you just go skin, smooth bind, click on the box, and then here you can bind to the joint hierarchy, selected joints. So if you just want to do the bottom half of the body or partially do it, you can do selected joints. I do the whole joint hierarchy. The bind method, closest distance is fine, but you've also got closest in hierarchy. You can do like a heat map or geodesic voxel. I'll just go for the closest distance in this case. Skinning method, classic linear is fine. Normalized weights, interactive, that means everything must add up to 100%. This is, I think, the best way of do it. Weight distribution, distance or neighbours. So the distance. Among multiple bind poses, this is going to be your bind pose. That's fine. Maximum influences, I'm going to keep it at 2. So that means each of these vertices will have a maximum of 2 influences. If you want to, if you got 3 bones that you want to kind of put their influence together, you have to have more. But I think maximum influences 2 is fine. Click, unclick, maintain maximum influences. This is kind of personal, whether you want to or not. That's fine. It means basically each vertices must have 3 maximum, in this case 2 maximum influences. Okay, and just click on apply. What that's done now is, if you look down here, is put what's called a skin cluster on and a bind pose. This is the bind pose. The skin cluster is your binding to the skin. Now the next thing to do is, I always find, and I think most people will find, once you've done that, the reason why we do it at this stage, the last thing to do, is that you can actually grab these controls that we've done, and the useful thing is you put some animation on these controls. You put in the animation on the controls because you want to see where it screws up, and you can see it's screwing up here, here on the other leg, and here. Okay, so you move this up, and you see how it's... You've got to be kind of reasonable with where you pose it, where the character's going to want to pose. Okay, so here, and I'm just going to put 20, I'm just going to put an S on that. So I've just dropped a key down, you can just see it down there, it's like a red line on 20. And so that's to scrub it, and I can just, because I've frozen everything, I'm just going to put it back where it was in our bind pose. And now what that does is it gives me a little bit of animation where I can see where it's going wrong. In here, so I can already see something's gone wrong here. The bones aren't updating. The controller, that's just weird, because the controller's updated, but the bones are staying where they were. So that is just strange. I'm just going to take that back. That's weird. You see the bones are following it now. I'm just going to put an S down there. Yeah, that's better. I really don't know what that was. That's a 2015 thing. I'll say that now. And you can see where it's all kind of cracking up. Here. It's gone thin up here. If you look at that, it's gone kind of thin around there. It's pulling that in. And it's bits are torn off here. Bits are torn off here. Now, this is where we can use. We've got two tools really here. So, first tool is if you basically select on the skeleton and go to paint skin weights tool, and what that does is it colorizes this skeleton for each bone. So that's the pelvis there, and the left knee, and you can see where each influence is. Now first of all, you can look over here and you can see the influence. This is this joint here, this hip joint here, and it's, first of all, it's got influence over the other leg, and it shouldn't have any influence there. So you can paint that out. Now the various tools you've got to paint it out. So you've got paint there. So you can either replace it, so just replace it with, at the moment its value is 1, so just paint that influence out or in. You can add to it, so you can add layers to it. You can scale that, so if it's 0.5 you can scale that up. So it's 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 and so on, so you can kind of add to it like that. Or you can smooth it out. So if instead of having these harsh lines, you can kind of smooth it to shades of grey. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to paint this out. Now you can press Control and kind of paint that. See how it's moving back. This is the good thing. And you can see how much influence it had. It had all influence all over this area. And you notice as well that it's done on vertices. It's not done on the faces, it's done on vertices. So I'm just painting that back by pressing Control. And it was Tim who showed me, who basically drew this to my attention. Oh, I've gone a bit too far there, so I'm just going to Control Z that back. And you see how odd sometimes this can be, so I'm going to paint this back again. But even with this, I'm going to tumble around this view. Even with this, it can be a bit odd, because what you're doing is you're painting stuff, and it's not quite set up for painting. So it's there. Look, I've just selected that bit. This is really kind of an odd way of doing it. It's kind of good in broad kind of brush techniques, but it isn't brilliant. So I mean, this is a simple job, really. So what you kind of try and find is areas like this. You can do it by vertex basis, and I'll show you how to do that now. So I'm just painting these back. And this is where, this is where naming stuff kind of comes to the fore. So I'm going to quit the paint skim weights tool, and I'm going to grab some of these vertices. And for this, I'm just going to lower the leg. And you see how useful the animation bit is. So I'm just going to grab these vertices. I'm going to just turn these joints off and grab, say, these vertices here. I'm just going to get rid of these ones. And just select them around there and here. I've got one or two selected here, which I'm just going to get rid of. Okay, that's about right. So I've just selected them on one leg, and I know that these vertices are just on this one leg, so I just want to 100% that on the right leg, not the left leg. So if we go to Window, General Editor, Component Editor, I'm just going to expand this a little bit more and click on Smooth Skins, and this shows you in a list the influences that each the influences that each of these vertex have. So vertex 2552, so the left hip joint is actually influenced by the left hip joint, nothing by the pelvis joint. The right hip joint, which is what it should be 100% influenced, is there, so that should be 1, that should be 0, that should be 0, and that should be 0. So if you go through and just select that, and you can just click on 1, and that vertex is 100% influenced by that. And it's really the same for all of them, so you can just go through, select them all, so select a bunch of them here, select them all in here, and just set them all to 1. So just pressing 1, everything else disappeared by that. So right hip joint 100%. And this is really good method to use for where you get a long joint. So here in the thighs is absolutely fine. So just check. Okay, there's still another, but it's a lot better than before. So you can go through and select that. So that you there, fella, that one. That you should be 100%. So again, Window, General Editor, Component Editor. And if you've got two monitors, you can just look at it and just put one right hip joint, one, and then it bounces back. This is really interesting. This is really good method of using for these long bits here, where you know things are going to be 100% influenced by that one bone. And same thing here. Well, these just want to be 100% influenced by the left. So you go to, again, Window, General Editor, Component Editor, and just keep this one open. So it's just going to be left hip joint, because I'm just putting this on the left. Select them all, 1, done. Bounces back. Select those two, General Editor, Component Editor, left, 1, that's 100%, bounces back. You might find some of these that look okay aren't. So what you may want to do, because it's almost there, but it's a bit of influence, and it just bounces back. So the combination of using a little bit of animation to show you where the problems are, so you can just scrub it. So you can, if you go in a paint skim weights tool like that, instead of exiting the tool, finding out what's working and going back, you can just scrub it and just see what's going wrong. Okay, so that's a good way of actually finding out what's wrong. What you should be looking at, well, it's what looks best. I mean, this bit here, if you look at the back of this leg, well, the bit that's looking a bit ropey is here, and that's the kind of knee joint. So I suggest, if you look at that, that looks a bit ropey, click on the smooth, and what the smooth will do is, hopefully, why is it not smoothing? It's not actually working at the moment. It's not actually working, and I'll find out why in a second. So I could just add a little bit to it. So I'm just going to add 0.2 for the knee joint here. I'm just going to paint. I think something's actually selected somewhere. Yeah, I've just selected that 1 point, that's why it's not doing anything. So just go on object mode, print skin weights tool. That's why it wasn't smoothing. So I can smooth it now. And see how it's kind of smoothing it out. Not brilliantly because I've got to set it to 0.2. See, I'm smoothing it out. So you can kind of play around in these areas and add a little bit of influence at the top.
It's weird, it's like 1024 by 576.
And you can go down here. Open this. If you open stroke, you can set the radius of this brush. Sounds like there was a Wookiee over there. Okay, so you can have a little bit of influence. So here I'm just going to go to the top and add 2 influence. And you see how I can just add a bit more influence there. Obviously that was a bit too much. So scale. So add. You can smooth it a little bit up. And the smooth will kind of find an average. When it's kind of average, it won't smooth anymore. So you can add just a little bit of influence. So I'm just adding a little bit of influence there. And it's little increments, and you see what works. And then generally, these bands across will usually be about the same amount of influence. So this will be the same amount of influence at this point as all the rest of these bands across. So just have a play and see what works. If it works, you can kind of start to get somewhere. If you use those 2 methods of sorting out the long bones with 100% influence and adding a little bit of influence here and there, you can get somewhere, something that looks pretty good. It does take time. It's a real time hog. But you've come this far, may as well kind of add something so it looks okay. I don't know whether the influence of this, and obviously this bit here has gone completely bad, and it should be 100% influenced. So you can either go to the component editor and paint that back, or paint it in. I find this actually a little bit satisfying, just painting it back, because it kind of paints it how it should be. You can flood areas with paint, and just 100% it, but just it's a question of trial and error. See what looks good. So that's how I paint the skin weights. When you've finished it, when you've got somewhere that looks good, you're going to be wanting to save it. And that's the next bit. You're also going to be wanting to, it's quite enjoyable, kind of see what kind of can be done with each little bit. Okay, so that looks reasonable. I'm going to wanting to save it. So skeleton, sorry, skin. You can mirror skin weights as well. So as we've got a line down the middle, we can just mirror them over. But you can export the skin weights, export the skin weight maps, and import the skin weight maps. When you import them, generally what you do is you just do a smooth bind again, and then import the skin weight maps over the top of that using this button here. So export the skin weight maps. Make sure that it'll save quite a few, a skin weight map for each bone, and it's just basically a grayscale map it saves out, and there'll be quite a few, because if you've got quite a few bones, quite a few skin weight maps. Export them somewhere you want to, and put them in a folder. So I'm just going to create a folder called skin weights. Skin, let's put skin weight maps, skin weights, open, file name, Captain Atom, save, 75 skin maps, yeah. So it's now going through and putting IFFs. So you can save it every now and again and then load them. You just put them on top of each other. Generally the workflow for doing this is you start at the end of a joint chain and move up. I would start at the end of a joint chain, find those verts that are going to be 100%, do the general editor component editor and 100% those, and then just concentrate on the areas where two areas are folding into each other. Put some animation on it, see where it's going right, see where it's going wrong, change that, and use a very kind of small brush, and then add a tiny bit. Here I've got 0.05, and add tiny bits on, or take tiny bits away to make it look okay. I mean, here it looks terrible, but you can see how it's improved quite a bit. Just put a bit of animation on and add those bits. For the face, for loose bones, it's the same kind of thing. So these areas here, I'll have a bit of loose bonage on it. That'll be fine. And just manipulate them. You can, if you go to animation editor, and I think I've still got the blend shapes on here. So you can use a blend shape on there. If I was to use that as well as put a bone on, the two would conflict. So things like a jaw, don't put a bone in the jaw if you've got a blend shape to do it. Hello. Because the two will conflict and it'll pull this down and it'll all look horrible. So, but you can generally use the two together. If you've got a bone influence in, you can put a blend in. If you have not got a blend, you can put a bone in. So work up joint chains. So here I'm got to put a bit of animation on, and then with this controller here, put animation on, say the ball lift. So and you see how it doesn't look so good. So we can go in and smooth that off, or not, as you want to. So ball lift, key selected, 20, just like that. So I'm going to set that one to maximum, which is 10. Oh, it's gone funny. That's because the pole vector's crossed the line and his leg's gone backwards. So I'm just going to key selected that. Grab
Study materials or assessment, sorry. Assessments.
Grab, where's my locator? Is that my locator? I don't care about my Avast subscription. Not at the moment until it all goes pear-shaped. I'm just going to turn the geo off. There's my friend. There we go, that's better. If the legs turn the right way out, it's because the knee, this locator has hit this one. So it's looking okay. So I can do this, and I can grab this. I can either paint the skin weights, into the top left ball. There we go. And you can add, at the moment I've got a tiny bit of add, so I can add a bit for, this is the ball joint which is there, so I can add a bit of ball joint influence, just add a little bit of influence, and what that's doing is it's kind of thickening this bit up, which is what I want. I can also smooth that out. Don't forget the underneath. Add a little bit down there. Remember, I can use this to increase radius. That's looking okay, and whatever way you get there, it's looking okay. I just want to increase a little bit of influence there. That's fine. And go through and just work up this joint chain. So the next one is the ankle. So the ankle will be here. Complete this, so this will be 100% here for the ankle, because that is your ankle. I mean, some of this is, you can't tell the difference between white and very light shaded grey, which is where the component editor kind of comes into its own, because you can tell what's influenced by what and how much. So this area here, see, you put a little bit on there. Is that looking better or worse? Okay, is that looking better or worse? That's looking alright. So the knee, how's the knee doing? Well, the knee's a bit rubbish up here, so I'm going to add a bit more influence up here. You see, it's starting to flatten it out. So the mesh will move towards whichever joint you're doing. So I want to actually move that back. I've overdone it now, so I'm going to smooth that back, or maybe go through the hip and paint a bit more toward the hip. Either way, there's not enough hip there, so if I want to get in there, go back down here and add a little bit more hip influence to here. And it's just a matter of making things a little bit better. Animation, it will take a lot of time, because there's a lot of mesh and there's a lot of bones in that mesh, but it's one of those things. What I'm looking for is something that is pretty much there. So areas that you should really pay attention to are when you do the fingers, each individual finger is moving. When you do the hip, I want some, around the groin area and the gusset, as I like to call it, and the long bone. I want to see the long bones well done, and a really good effort around all these bending bones. the you know, that where one bone bends to the other, things like elbows, knees, the groin, stuff like that. Right. You know, you can go into the things like the spine. Oh, I haven't actually, it just did that for the cluster. Let's see if this one. No, I haven't put the cluster. I'm going to put the cluster on. So, put the cluster on. And see how these, see if we can just grab that cluster. Oh, the cluster isn't actually working. I wonder if I've grabbed all of the joint hierarchy. Because it did only say 75 maps. 75 maps created. Trade joints. Let's look at the joints there. Grab the spine cluster. Oh, I must have done something to the clusters, so they're not actually working. But yeah, I think areas like here. Fine, just put a bit of animation on it, get those fingers clenching, and just kind of sort it out. And that's it, once you've done that. You know, because things like the GUI will automatically go in. So, this is a classic case of bones meeting sorry, bone. So there's bone here meeting blends. So animation editor, we've got blend shape there, you see. And you see how the two are overwriting each other. So it's kind of gone, when the deformer's in, they work together. You can have them on the same model. So you can have this just on the eyebrow. So what I'll do, I'll try and sort this out now. So grab that paint skin weights tool, and for this, see, this is the trouble about not naming things. Joint. That's joint 7. That'll be the jaw. Joint 9. Joint 10. That is joint 10. So I want to take that influence off. So replace, press Control, take the influence off. And then replace it. Take this back. Make sure I've got a small enough brush. Maybe about half that. Yeah, it's about right. And replace that with influence just there. And just around that bit. So that and I wouldn't have, if I put the animation on, I wouldn't have had to quit the tool. Do you see what I mean? And that just does his eyebrow. Well, that is his eye that's uninfluenced by it. And you can make that a bit more subtle, but that's how it's done. Okay, so you can go through the model and redo all that. Here, your skin, you got export and import skin weights tools. I would just do that every now and again. So once you've done the legs, export the skin weights. Once you've done the body on, and then import them again, or maybe just right over the top of them. Then and do that every now and again. Save it a lot because it's actually quite prone to fall over and die. And just work through the model from the end of these chains up. So I'd do the left leg, then the right leg up to the hip, then the hip up the spine, and then the arm finger ends up to the shoulder, the finger ends up through to the shoulder, and then the head, and then you're finished. The whole thing could take you a day and a half to do it. If it does bugger up, don't worry, because the next time you do it, it'll be much faster. It will. It's just one of the things you just got to go through and do it. The jaw, well, you can either have the bone jaw just going rah, 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 or you can do blend shapes. If you do blend shapes, you don't really need this jaw on the top. You can if you want. The two can work together. Right. If you've got any other questions, please email me. That has been rigging. So, well done if you've got there. Thanks very much.